Shanks has always been the definition of hype, from losing his arm and scaring off a sea monster in the beginning of One Piece with a glare, to clashing with the world's strongest man, to stopping the war of the best that Marineford, and that carried over after the time skip with Wano revealing his bounty, which is currently the highest pirate bounty, and Shanks being the only living member in Kaido's top 5, to stopping an admiral with just his haki. Then Agate Island came and pretty much did the same, with Shanks showing the greatest future sight in the story, while also doing Roger's move, Divine Departure, to destroy Eustace Kid and Killer. Dory and Broggy even ended up comparing his haki, the Joy Boy, that had Imu on his knees, with that PTSD panel we saw there. All in all, Elbaf was doing the same, as he was the only man to stop Loki, with Herald and Scarper obviously failing. So the Shanks glaze has been a staple in One Piece, but the thing with Elbaf is not only his celestial dragon ties, with Figarland Shamrock being his older brother, but also his visit back home, where he decided to stay a human instead of a celestial dragon. So let's do a deep dive on how this new concept changes everything. We will see with Shanks going forward. Now, to truly understand why the Celestial Dragon plotline with Shanks is so important, you just gotta go all the way back to when the Celestial Dragons were first kind of introduced in the story. And that's when the Sabaody arc, where we see that the Celestial Dragons think they're so good, that like better than everybody, that they didn't want to breathe the same air. Like, that is completely messed up. We see Monkey D. Luffy's first time seeing the devastation of these Celestial Dragons with the slave explosion, and says they're awful. Luffy is one of the most morally driven characters in the story, so his initial reaction is as expected. Even the Celestial Dragon dogs don't breathe the same air as the regular humans on the Blue Sea. And honestly, the way that the dog pissed on the dead body of the pirate captain who was a slave was pretty savage. We see Saint Roswald and Princess Charlia with the law pirate Jean Bart as a slave, and she says another one got broken. I'm just thinking, wow, like, she doesn't even view this person as a human, just an object. She also says, buy me a new one, and her father says losing his captain collection is really hurting his feet, like hurting his pockets in a sense. And Oda used pirates probably to ease us into this whole like monstrative scenery of the Celestial Dragons. Papag the Starfish says you will get smoked by an admiral if you dare touch these Celestial Dragons, and Luffy gets PTSD from, of course, Aokiji whooping his ass. Papag the Starfish also explains that these Celestial Dragons are the World Government descendants that grossly abuse their power. And honestly, it's pretty much this aspect how I look at these monsters, because they're obviously built through a hate system, and they definitely feel like they're untouchable. We even see Mad Monk Rouge see these Celestial Dragons even in the lawless zone of Sabaody, showing that they have no fear, but pretty much the fear that they instill even in the most deadliest people and savages of people and evils of people, but people that don't listen to the law, they don't care, because they know that they're Celestial Dragons, and everybody just want to mess with the wrath of dealing any damage to them. And then of course we see a Celestial Dragon riding on a human and having 2 women slaves, and honestly, like, it just makes me think of the whole Bonnie plotline with Kuma. Like, it's just disgusting, honestly. We see the Celestial Dragon get upset that people are moving, and it's pretty much doctors trying to save someone bleeding out, which is just crazy how they have no compassion for even the littlest things. The way they abuse their powers, it's crazy. It's like they have an absolute power system of no ifs, ands, no excuses. You either listen to us or you get smoked. Then the Celestial Dragon finishes the job and makes the nurse his 13th wife, foreshadowing the whole Bonnie storyline I talked about earlier. And I'm just thinking, wow, these guys have no empathy. Obviously, her fiance objects, and then the Celestial Dragon kills her fiance. And Aruj says that they're worse than their rumors. And Aruj is the character that is connected to the overall One Piece story because of his race from Burka. Like, that now kind of revealed some interesting things on the cover story that I talked about earlier. Speaking of Bonnie, she saved the Celestial Dragon here, Charlos, from Zoro. It's ironic because Kuma and her mother storyline, it's like, wow, Bonnie, all she's doing is she's thinking, I ain't trying to get an admiral pulling up here. But knowing what we know about Bonnie, it's like, wow, like, this is crazy how, like, it's not really her the one that goes through pain. It's more so Kuma that is the one who goes through pain when it comes to that Celestial Dragon storyline, because she was just a baby. She doesn't know what happened and how she was consumed and everything. She doesn't know. And when we see Eustace Kid, the man who was hurting civilians, pretty much the man with no morals, like saying that pretty much the villains of this world look humane compared to the celestial dragons. And Yusa's kid says even we have a cute side compared to what they are. Yeah, these guys are pure monsters. If Yusa's kid is the one saying this. We even see Saint Charlos kicking his car. It's pretty much a slave, but the way he's treating it, it's like it's a car and says to sell it. The only problem is it's pretty much a human. Like treating a human like a car is like they're treating it worse. I'm not saying an animal because that's not how even people treat horses or animals. Like you can't even say that because people don't like do that. Maybe there's some evil people who do that, but is this Saint Charlos? Not Saint Charlos. Yeah, Saint Charlos was treating this slave worse than an animal, in my opinion. Then we see Charlos offer 500 million berries for Cammy the mermaid, and of course his father's like, "Yo, you have piranhas. Why would you even buy this mermaid?" And he's like, "No, I want to see her run from the piranhas and see if her mermaid speed is actually truth." And I'm just thinking, wow, like this guy is lower than scum. Then we see Charlos shoot Hachi the fishman, and the racism comes into play with these celestial dragons. Of course it's going to come into play. Like they've done the R word and everything evil else. So, and I wouldn't be surprised if racism comes into play. And obviously we know that they want fishermen slaves because fishermen are 10 times stronger than humans. So they make for good slaves for these celestial dragons. And Luffy is stopped by Hachi because Luffy was about to kick this guy's ass like immediately. And Hachi stops him and says, "Remember your promise. You said if anything happens, even if someone gets shot, you wouldn't touch the celestial dragons." And Hachi says, "I'm a pirate. I deserve it. I've done so many bad things." And it was one of the most emotional moments. And the anime does it amazing in this scene right here. Honestly showing like how it was like our emotions got heightened to like next level, because we already thought these guys were disgusting, and then the Hachi thing is like, oh my gosh, we want to jump in the manga and the anime and just strangle this celestial dragon. But the good thing is we have Monkey D. Luffy. Like I told you guys, he's one of the most morally driven characters I've ever seen in anime, and Luffy just punches the shit out of the celestial dragon Charlos, which at the time is the craziest thing ever done. But I loved it, and we see Kuma later like watching from behind the scenes, so obviously Kuma's probably loved that what Luffy did there. So honestly, I want to see Luffy punch more celestial dragons. Like I see, obviously we've seen it in Egghead Island with Sagorse, but I want to see him punch that main celestial dragon asshole. Yes, him. We also find out that even Saint Charlos's father has never hit him. I'm just thinking, wow. So pretty much Luffy is your new daddy. And Shanks, not Shanks, Sanji stops his dad from shooting Luffy. The left hand showing why he's the left hand of the future Pirate King. And it's cool seeing them all stand up to celestial dragons when it comes to Zoro trying to kill Saint Charlos earlier with his swordsmanship. And now Sanji going up against his father, St. Roswald, and Luffy, of course, doing the signature punch. The monster trio showing why they're the monster trio. Let's fast forward after the time skip in Fishman Island, where we see that during the Otahime Fisher Tiger flashback, we get this character named Don Quixote Moscard, who makes fun of his crew for dying and insults the fisherman that he sees in front of him while saying, "Get his mask." Like, this guy is in a really rough shape, and he's still being evil, just like every other celestial dragon. He even makes fun of the smell of Fishman Island and is trying to force him to save him. And Hody right away like wants to kill him. He's like, "Yo, let's just kill this guy. Like, this guy's a piece of shit." And I agree, honestly. Hody was a villain. He was not a good guy, but I agree with this. What I was like, the guy had the way he was moving. Like, I was thinking, like, just get rid of this guy. We also find out why he went to Fishman Island. It was for greed, to get his slaves back that Jinbei freed because of his warlord's position. And I'm just thinking, wow, this is some crazy next level delusion from the celestial dragon we're seeing here from Moscard. And it's crazy because he's like, this isn't how it was supposed to go. That's what he says. Yes, it wasn't how it was supposed to go. I'm just thinking, such ignorance from a character. Like, everything doesn't go your way, bro. We then see Sun Pirates, well, his former slaves, come around, and it's still like, he's still trying to get them back, which I'm thinking, no intelligence. Like, bro, you're outnumbered here. Like, you're still trying to get these slaves back, yo. Like, the delusion is just insane. Like, they also then explain to him that no one will find out if he goes missing, because everyone at Fishman Island will keep quiet. And we see he starts to realize his mortality. And this is one of the few times where the celestial dragon isn't delusional. He starts to realize, oh, for the first time, I am human. I am not different. Now, of course, right before he's about to be killed, Otahime takes a bullet for this trash. And this is what, honestly, this is what it takes to cause change. You need certain people like that are just so good, like when it comes to their heart. And these people are the ones who show us that the most evil person can be changed. So Otahime here is in the right, but I'm just thinking, me personally, like, I don't know if I had that strength to do what she did. Like, I would just think this guy's a piece of shit, like, just get rid of him. But Otahime shows that what she did here, it was a good thing. I can't go against it. And you need people like this to do it, because they're a rare bunch, and she was one of that rare bunch that did it. And it kind of makes you look at the dynamic of Celestial Dragons in a bigger picture, not just in a small lens. You start to look at it more so in a grand scheme of things, and how you can help change the Celestial Dragons rather than just look at them as enemies. And like, pretty much, yes, they're really bad, like really bad, but even the worst can be changed. I think I learned this from Otahime in this moment. Now, of course, the asshole takes Otahime as an hostage right after she took a bullet for him. And honestly, Poseidon, her daughter, comes clutch and summons the Sea Kings. We also then see former slave Aladdin goes to treat the Celestial Dragon, showing great empathy because he was a slave and he's now helping the Celestial Dragon, who's bad mouthing and wanting the slaves back. Like, it's just crazy to see this evilness that needs to be sponged out, like cleaned out. We even see this dumbass start threatening the very people that saved him, like showing no gratitude for the great kindness that they showed. But you know, they say kindness, people take your kindness for weakness. I'm not saying kindness is weakness. I think kindness is one of the most powerful things. But people do see kindness and think they can walk over you. It's something that's even done like in the real world, not just in One Piece, guys. Now, speaking of another Don Quixote Celestial Dragon, let's talk about the fallen Celestial Dragon, Doflamingo. In the beginning of Dressrosa, he introduces himself as a Celestial Dragon, or he pretty much is introducing the Celestial Dragon pirate concept that is centered around Shanks and why I'm making this video. So Doflamingo, you have to give him credit for that. Doflamingo also acknowledges his time as a Celestial Dragon and says his life is a twisted life. Just like Shanks in a sense, it's just more twisted in a different way, where Doflamingo has fallen from Celestial Dragon status and now is living as a pirate, where Shanks never felt the Celestial Dragon status, went to go back and made a decision. So Doflamingo talks about pretty much he's not a Celestial Dragon anymore, but he does has ties to it because of his story. And that story being his father, Homing, who's not one of the most intelligent characters. One thing I noticed when it comes to like characters like Otahime and Homing is they might not be that intelligent when it comes to intellect, but their emotional intelligence is insane. And to be emotionally intelligent, I always say this, if you're going to be emotionally intelligent, you're probably going to make a lot of stupid moves because you're going to be put in a lot of vulnerable situations. But that emotional intelligence is needed because it shows the heart. Sometimes you got to go with the heart rather than the brain. The brain is always a good choice when it comes to helping yourself and being efficient, but the heart is something that can just change the world when it comes to compassion. And Homing, he says we're all humans. That shocks all the Celestial Dragons. And I was like, whoa. Seeing a Celestial Dragon that was living in that hate system, realize that he's human without no like Otahime taking a bullet for you moment was insane. And he is a Don Quixote, so maybe it's something to do with that clan we find on the Void Century. Who knows? You see the Celestial Dragons have these ID cards that get revoked immediately, and Homing and his family lose their ID cards. And Doflamingo's like, yo, where's the slaves? Where's the slaves? And I'm thinking, Doflamingo, no, you don't know what your father just did, yo. He just said, yeah, the greatest life you've been living so far, we're gonna go all the way back to reality. Yes, I ain't Eminem, but I had to say it. Now, of course, the world has had hundreds of years of hatred carved into them because of the Celestial Dragons, from the tributes to the ostracized, like it's just everything, slavery. So they got chased everywhere they went. This is common sense. Everyone knew this was gonna happen. It got so bad that Homing even called the back to his homeland and tried to get his fat wife and kids back there so they could survive, because they were getting disrespected and chased and tried to be killed and tortured. And they're like, nah, you said you're human, so stay a human. It's just showing the Celestial Dragons will even turn on their own kind if they turn on them. But showing if you show any compassion, you are now considered nothing to them. But if you become evil, like their flock mentality, you will have nothing of bad come to you. Yeah, stay here. Yeah, have fun, everything. We then see Homing's son, Corazon, explain the animosity of pretty much the Celestial Dragons towards the D, and how it goes pretty far back in the story. Like pretty much they say the D are like evil and everything, and they have this whole narrative of the D. So it shows that Inuyasha erases the Void Century history, but he still wants them to know it, even if the cracks, like some D's crack through, he wants them to always feel that initial D is an enemy rather than a friend, keeping that. So honestly, it's kind of contradicting because you're always going to leave like questions about the D, and the Void Century is always going to be brought up. There's always going to be ties, but I get what Imu's trying to do. He's pretty much saying, make sure these guys know their enemy, but still not knowing the full history, but still know your enemy regardless. So like, it's kind of like they're brainwashed in a sense. Back to the reverie, we see that Saint Charlos dumbass is here again, and he tries to kidnap Shirahoshi, another mermaid. Well, last time he bought her, but this when it comes to Kami, 500 million, but this one Shirahoshi tries to kidnap this huge giant slave. And I'm just thinking, yo, this guy does not give up. Yo, Luffy's punch wasn't enough. Like, holy, like, what the hell? And then we see Leo can't stand to see Shirahoshi treated like this and goes to attack mode. Of course, after this, Sai follows him up as well. These are both Grand Fleet members of Luffy. But it just reminded me of the mural we saw in chapter 1138. And we saw that in Tada. I'm thinking Leo going against the dragon. It's in his blood, yo. It's in his DNA. And I loved it. Then we see Rob Lucci's bot self start glazing the Celestial Dragons. This is what I always felt like with Rob Lucci. I felt like he had one of the greatest fights ever when it comes to Luffy versus Lucci. But as a villain, there's a reason why Doflamingo Crocodile are better than Rob Lucci to me, even NL, because Rob Lucci is just a sicko. Like, he has no feelings. Honestly, he just does what he's told to do. It's not like he's deep in a sense. But the other villains I know are like more so like planning and plotting, like villains, like scheming like villains. Where Rob Lucci is just like, he just does what he's told and does it really well. I think he does it really well and doesn't bring no emotions into it. So he's like a killing machine, honestly. So yeah, we see him glazing the Celestial Dragon. I'm just thinking this guy needs to be woken up from his brainwashing. Then we see another Celestial Dragon come out of nowhere and save the day. Yes, as Neptune was about to crash out and Lucci was also about to crash out. So I love this Celestial Dragon coming out of nowhere and saving the day. He then asks for forgiveness and apologizes for Charlos, showing amazing empathy from a Celestial Dragon, which is just mind-blowing to see. Like, who is this character? Everyone's just thinking, who's this character that Oda is showing here? And then we see it. It's Mossguard. Yes, Don Quixote Mossguard. And he's bowing down. And he's asking to be used for their disposal. As we see that El Tahime brought back his humanity, showing how change, like, ironically, the same time like, I'm gonna be honest with you, when it comes to the Shamrock Shanks plot twist began, this is like ironically the same time, because that's when Shamrock went up to meet up with the Gorosei. Showing the humanity in a Celestial Dragon be changed. Like, this guy was a sick piece of shit and now he's a good guy. It's thinking, if he can be changed, maybe they all can be changed. Like, maybe there's a different route of going with this whole Celestial Dragon thing. Like, my initial route is just take these guys out, but now I'm thinking maybe they can learn a thing or two. Maybe they're not so far gone. Now, what does he get for this amazing empathy from a Celestial Dragon? Yeah, he gets killed. Yeah, Figarland Garland kills him and says, "You're lower than scum for standing up for humans." Just like his son, which is ironic as well. And we seen Doflamingo's dad. Like, honestly, Doflamingo's dad died, and his Don Quixote Mossguard died. I think it's maybe foreshadowing Shanks dying for doing the same thing. Because the reason why Doflamingo is not foreshadowed to die is because he actually still wants to be a Celestial Dragon and still serves Celestial Dragons while Shanks doesn't. So I feel like that's maybe something I can admit could be a thing, but some people might disagree. Even during the time where we saw Vegapunk's message of the Void Sentry, we see Princess Charla, one of the main Celestial Dragons I brought up in the beginning of these Sabaody arc, was waking up from her brainwash by saying, wait, Void Sentry? Her saying that was a big deal because we've seen it with Don Quixote Mossguard. And if she changes as well, like, we've seen how asshole she was too. If we're seeing these rotten scum of people change, there's hope. And if there's hope, if there's a will, there's a way. Now, how does this all tie back into Shanks? Well, me personally, you have to look at after Wano. And when I say after Wano, Shanks talked about going for the One Piece. And a lot of people looked at it like so one-dimensional. Oh, Big Mom and Kaido fall, and now you want to go for the One Piece because Buggy and Luffy are Yonko, and you think you have an edge. No. I didn't look at it like that at all. I looked at it as Shanks going for the One Piece now all of a sudden. It's not because of power and everything like that. I believe Shanks going for the One Piece is to do with his roots as well as a Celestial Dragon. Let me explain a little bit. Right now, we know that Shanks was waiting at Wano because he was looking for Blackbeard. He just assumed that Blackbeard would be there to capitalize. And then we see next time Shanks asking about Blackbeard's whereabouts. So we know that Shanks is looking for Blackbeard. And this fight has been foreshadowed since the Marineford War. And even before that, when he met with Whitebeard and said that he got scarred by Blackbeard while on guard. So we already know that the whole situation of Shanks realizing that Blackbeard doesn't sleep. We know that Shanks Blackbeard have been built up so many times. And Shanks Blackbeard is an interesting thing because we're going to be rooting for Shanks, but he's a Celestial Dragon and Blackbeard is a Willa D. it kind of reverses and kind of explains what I'm trying to talk about when it comes to celestial dragons being able to change, like Mosgard and maybe even Charlia, Princess Charlia. When it comes to these celestial dragons, Shanks is a celestial dragon who was raised right, not through the hate system, and look how great he is. And Blackbeard is a Willy member who's rotten to the core, kind of similar to Celestial Dragon, not as similar in the sense of Blackbeard. He obviously has some trouble with past and everything, but it's kind of like reversing what we see here. And then you got to look at when, of course, Vanguard's message is playing, we see Shanks is drinking out of his mind. And then you look at Shanks and you remember how he went for Luffy's Delph food. When CB0, CB9, who's like, what the hell? Why does he care about the Delph fruit? This is a regular gum fruit. The Nika fruit. Shanks had the Nika fruit. And then we think about his Roger Pirate days and how he was with them. And Kozuki can read the old poneglyphs and read all these poneglyphs. And they all came back. All the Roger Pirates came back to Shanks. And they obviously told him the truth because he's a Roger Pirate. Shanks knows more than Whitebeard. Not Whitebeard, because Roger did tell Whitebeard things. But Shanks knows more than Kaido and Big Mom when it comes to the overall story. He's a big player. And don't forget, Shanks was crying when Roger came back from Laugh Tale. Roger definitely told him Joy Boy's tale, or like a sneak preview of Joy Boy's tale and how it connects to him as he's a Figarland Celestial Dragon. So Shanks knows his part in the overall story the same way Luffy doesn't know his part, but Luffy has a part in the overall story as a Will D member. Shanks has a part as a Celestial Dragon. And that's scary because Shanks, we love Shanks, but he knows that the Celestial Dragons are not a friend, they're actually foes. So I made this whole video, I know it might be a little long-winded, but I made this whole video just to explain this. Shanks vs Blackbeard will be the reverse of Luffy vs Doflamingo we saw in Dressrosa. Luffy being that Willy D member taking down a Celestial Dragon and Doflamingo, where we're actually going to see Shanks, the Celestial Dragon, being taken down by the Willy D member, and this is not what we want. I feel like the concept is also going to be again brought up when it comes to Luffy versus Emu, maybe in Dragon as well. But still, you have to understand this Willy D versus Celestial Dragon concept that Oda's trying to bring with Shanks. And we'll start to understand it's all because of Nerona Emu's brainwashing, that the effects of the world government manipulating the truth. And truly, like, honestly, Shanks was disgusted probably of Marijo was when he went back and vowed to never return. And I believe his role in the final war is one of the biggest when it comes to the perspective and change in the One Piece world. And I can't wait to see what Oda's cooking up with this storyline, because it shows that Shanks is a Celestial Dragon, but he's so good. He has such a clean, pure heart. And to see that he's a part of such a hateful group, it makes you think, yo, where is Oda going to go with this? And kind of highlight, it's probably going to be Elbaf, but probably Luffy, when it comes to Shanks vs Blackbeard. And that's where we get Shanks's true fleshed out character, because it's not going to be that bullshit hyping of glazing him like we've been getting the entire story. Yeah, I love it, but still, I want to see more in depth when it comes to Shanks.